Hello there, 25 years of impactful and independent journalism. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA 0992539. Our top stories this hour. More COVID-19 cases recorded in Ghana as the case count rises to 287 and more test results are expected. Don't panic, but remain vigilant is government's strong recommendation as it clarifies packages for frontline workers. We have the details from the press conference held a while ago. In how are you respecting the lockdown directive, President Akufo-Addo has been concerned. This afternoon, 14 people have been arrested for flouting the rules in Kaswa. We have details from that region as well as the Ashanti region. And on the global front, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom Boris Johnson remains in intensive care as his coronavirus symptoms worsen, and WHO clarifies Africa will not be a testing ground for COVID-19 vaccine following accusation of racism after a French doctor suggested the testing should be conducted first in Africa. Join us on DSTV 41, Go TV 144, and on YouTube where we are streaming live. You can join us with your thoughts, your opinions, your comments, your questions on 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. You're welcome to the show. Unfortunately, this has become the new normal. We'll have to give you an update on Ghana's case count, which has unfortunately shot up. You just saw those figures there, 287. That's our total confirmed cases so far. This is as a result of latest tests conducted, as President Akufo-Addo indicated on Sunday. 15,000 of those. Not all is in. Well, let's take a look at the breakdown of those figures. In the Greater Accra region is still topping the chart with a lot more. 256 recorded here. In the Ashanti region yesterday at about this time it was 12. We're looking at 18. So we have 6 more cases from there. The northern region seems to have stabilized over the period. It remains 10. One person is still on the run. Upper West has 1 case. Eastern region has 1 case. And the Upper East region also has 1 case. So we further break it down and look at those who were put in mandatory quarantine. The confirmed number of cases from those who were put in mandatory quarantine is 105. 105. None of them have recovered, but 31 have been discharged to continue the treatment at home. Who are responding to treatment. 74 of that number are responding to treatment. None of them has died. None of them is in critical condition. Furthermore, mandatory quarantine in Tamale remains at 10. Those who have recovered, none. Nobody is in critical condition. No one has died. It remains 10. One person is still on the loose. Let's take a look at what we gather through the routine surveillance. In the routine surveillance, 172 cases have been confirmed. 3 of them were told have recovered. 18 have been discharged to go out there and treat these cases at home. 144 of them are still responding to treatment. 2 of them are in moderate condition and 5 persons have died. So that's by way of updating you on what has happened as far as Ghana's case count is concerned. But there's something new in Ghana. The government has put out a number which you can actually call and get food delivered to you for free. Yes, I'm talking about this country, Ghana. You'll actually get water supplied to you for free for the next 3 months. And if your tap has been disconnected for non-payment of bills, your service could be restored and the debt put on hold for the next 3 months. It doesn't mean you won't pay, you will pay. But that's after these 3 months. Now that sounds like paradise on earth for some of us. All these are part of side-ranging social interventions announced by government to minimize the impact of the lockdown and other brutal measures introduced to halt the spread of COVID-19. President Akufo-Addo mentioned this in his 4th COVID update to the nation on Sunday. Actually, it's 5th on Sunday. But today, his ministers responsible for water and sanitation, gender, children and social protection, as well as information, have been given details of these interventions as government updates the country on the management of coronavirus cases here. We'll hear from them shortly. First, though, the senior minister who's been given details about the number of persons who are being fed by government in the lockdown areas in Greater Accra, Kaswa and Greater Kumasi areas, says this.
One of the challenges of us during the lockdown is feeding those who are very vulnerable. It is a big challenge, and as the government suggested, we intend to feed about 400,000 minimum people in the lockdown areas. Thank you for all those who have seen the need to come and support the government and, by extension, the COVID-19 Trust Fund to cater for those who have been disadvantaged by COVID-19.
All right, so that's the senior minister there who was at the press conference today. Head of our health desk, Fred Smith, was at that press conference, and he joins me in the studio with more. We'll start from the relief packages announced today for vulnerable people. Fred, tell us more.
Well, great stuff there. The gender minister announcing that they've started serving people food in Accra. They're extending it to the other lockdown areas, and so they identify those who would need it, and then they give them. They've also advertised telephone numbers where people who need food, and because of the lockdown they cannot move, they don't have anything with them, they can call and food will be delivered to them. Right. To also deepen this process, they are also engaging persons who already prepare food in the communities, so that in your localities, who sell in their localities, they will be given resources to produce the food and then serve to those around. Right. And they want to get people who know the community well, so that they know who are coming for the food. There must be some kind of accountability. And the gender minister, Cynthia Morrison, gave those details at the news conference. We can hear her.
Right.
You said you saw Kaya working, and yet you are providing for them. We are providing for everybody. There are people who are also doing manual jobs that we are still providing for. But the exception is not Kaya, it's for everybody. And another person said he went to Circle and on Osu, and they said there was no food. Father Campbell is doing food at Osu and Circle. And that I can assure you, it is done every day. There are people who would get food and then go back and tell you they haven't gotten. When I was going to work, there are people right in front of the National Theatre, they were eating. Whilst I was coming here, they were all moving towards the Ministry of Gender because we gave them food yesterday. Yesterday, even at the Ministry of Gender, some came to take food. He went away, he was wearing a cap. He put the cap and wore a scarf and then came for the food. It's natural. And so, but for places where there's no food, we'll make sure that we send food to, so don't worry. With disability, we are with them, we have their quota. You go there now, we've packed them. Their director, Auntie Akuya, is right there in the ministry to take their food. They cannot move out now. So the distribution is not like bringing them all together and do the distribution. They are going to get their food. Some have already gotten, and others are going to get. We have a group of people at the stadium, Olympic people who are going to play games, and they couldn't. We've sent their quota.
So that's the Gender and Social Protection Minister there. Fred, do take us through again the numbers that people are supposed to call if they identify themselves as vulnerable people who need this intervention.
Well, I think I recall 800.
800. That's
yes.
it. 800. That's not difficult at all. But don't prank this line. I mean, over the weekend, MFR Powell had the chance to go to the call center 311, and when she went there, she picked some calls, and someone said
they wanted food.
Yes.
Okay. So now there's a contact to call for that food, and I can only imagine how those who work there, the call center operators, will be inundated with calls because almost everybody
wants
It's
food.
hungry, yeah.
So, well, but if you don't need it, you don't need to call it, so that people who actually need it can have access to it. Well, Fred, government has actually also rolled out a plan to get water to every Ghanaian for free for the next 3 months, and that's what a lot of people are excited about. How exactly will this happen?
Indeed, the president during his interaction with the nation on Sunday mentioned this, but we have the sanitation minister giving us details, and so tankers are going to be sent round to areas where they don't have water flowing at all. In areas where there are pipelines but water cannot flow to those areas, they will also have tankers going there. In areas where there are community water systems supplying, selling to people, it will be free because government is going to pay them end of the day. If there's somebody who is selling water to people in a certain community and that's what their livelihood depends on, then those people are also going to be paid by Ghana Water, so they're not supposed to sell. People must just come, fetch, and go home. The plan was also explained by the Water and Sanitation Minister, Cecilia Abnadapa, at this news conference.
Okay, we can hear her now.
During the 5th broadcast of His Excellency the President to the nation on COVID-19, he reiterated that Ghana Water Company Limited should ensure the stable supply of water during this period that we are fighting this deadly disease. And he went on that there will be no disconnection of supply. Furthermore, government will absorb the water bills for all Ghanaians for the next 3 months, i.e. April, May, and June. Added to that, water tankers, both public ones and privately owned ones, are also going to be mobilized to ensure the water supply to all vulnerable communities. I must state here that this also includes the Ghana Water Sanitation Agency. All their systems also will provide water for free. Again, all community-based water systems are to serve water to the community residents for free. All water bills for the above months for all domestic customers and standpipe users will be absorbed by government. I'm stressing this so that there will be no confusion. Also, hospitals, clinics, and other health centers will enjoy priority supply of water as they have been doing. If there's anything, they will call Ghana Water Company to quickly mobilize tanker services to serve them. We are also going to install polytanks in urban areas as well as, if necessary, the rural areas to make sure water is easily accessible. There are areas that have pipelines that are suffering from lack of water. These areas are being listed for tanker services to serve them. And these tanker services are being deployed nationwide to supply water. Meanwhile, we plead with all of us to make sure that we do not tamper with the pipelines and infrastructure of both Ghana Water Company Limited and Community Water and Sanitation Agency, so that we will have constant supply of water.
Hopefully this breaks it down further what the president said. But above all of this, there is also a stimulus package. Fred.
Indeed, there's no end to the goodies, and
hopefully
the economy must continue to run. And Information Minister Kojo Ponkruma has been detailing what stimulus packages are there to ensure that the economy remains strong despite the situation we find ourselves in. So he spoke at the news conference as well. Right,
we can go there.
President instructing the minister responsible for finance to make $100 million CD equivalent available to prepare in terms of logistics, facilities, health infrastructure, public education, etc., to the tune of about $100 million CD equivalent. 35 million of that is a credit facility which has just been approved by Parliament. It is our understanding that hopefully today the World Bank board itself should approve it so that disbursement can take place. 65 million of it is a virement of an already existent garage facility, which has already happened, and that 65 million cedi equivalent is now available to the Republic of Ghana. So just to inform the general public that the 100 million USD, 65 of it is a virement of an already existent garage facility, which virement has now taken place and the funds are now available to the government of Ghana. The 35 million is to be approved by the World Bank board, hopefully today, so that disbursement can be done as well for the preparedness program. The second part of it is the coronavirus alleviation package or program, which is budgeted about 219 million US dollars cedi equivalent. That is being taken from oil funds. You would recall that quite recently Parliament approved a transfer of that amount of money into the contingency fund. The Constitution says that the committee responsible for financial measures in Parliament is a committee that is seized with the power to decide how that money, once it's in the contingency, should be used. So the minister responsible for finance is going to make an application, and the committee will consider it and represent to the whole or to Parliament to allow for that fund to be made available for the coronavirus alleviation program. And
so that's the information minister with the stimulus packages, you know, so there is a loan that's available. You want to get on their website and find out a bit more so you can pursue which suits you. But Fred, there was the health minister as well, who by the way is getting a new deputy, who a lot of people seem excited, whose appointment a lot of people seem excited about.
Indeed, Honorable Okoboy
right,
will become, after Parliament vets him, if they approve him, then he'll become the Deputy Health Minister, I'm sure. He has a foothold of this whole health area, and
right,
so having been a doctor himself, practicing doctor, so it'll be interesting to hear from him.
Certainly,
yes.
certainly. I mean, last week, just about last week, he was here. But let's not digress. That will be a very interesting conversation that we can have. But minister, right?
His issue has to do with the controversy that's arising after the president announced the package for frontline workers.
Exactly.
And so the controversy is who benefits,
who falls within that category frontline
and will benefit. And I understand that among the health workers, there's been huge debate since yesterday about who will benefit from this.
Before this debate came, the debates that the biggest conversation among these people was PPEs, availability of PPEs. Indeed. To make them feel comfortable enough to work around, you know.
Indeed, the PPE issue is still there, but because there's individual benefit to the health professionals, now everybody is asking to lock themselves in so they can also benefit. But the health minister doesn't appear to have come to a conclusion on who will benefit or who will not. What we know now is that those who are actively engaged in the fight against COVID now will surely benefit. And they've also had, there are some volunteers who are also working in this space. So the question is, how do you deal with such persons? Because the person is not on salary. So if they are enjoying tax reduction on their income, there's no income in the first place.
But they're getting 130 cedis each every day, right?
Yes, that is for, so for their emoluments, their standard emoluments, there will be tax reduction on what they get, and so you don't have to pay tax and that kind of thing. So for those people, how do they also benefit from this tax reduction, because they are already not getting a salary? So that debate has been ongoing, but he clarified and said that, well, we've not come to a conclusion on this matter yet. Hold on, as we engage leadership of the various health institutions to address it, because if you realize, some of the cases go to private facilities before they go. So who are they? Are they frontline workers? Maybe yes. There are people who work in these areas. He cited the example of a cleaner who works in that area. He's not directly involved in the fight, but he's still at the front line, because if there's any issue there, he or she can be affected. He's as close to the case as the doctors they are all exposed. And so it will be interesting to know what plan they come up with. But this is his explanation as he gave at the news conference, the health minister.
Right.
We have made available 15 Ayalolo buses
now in Accra, and a number again in Kumasi. This operation started yesterday. The buses that we have designated to carry health workers have been labeled health staff in front of the windscreens and on the sides. These are strictly to be utilized by health workers. They have done routes that will touch in some of the hospitals and polyclinics in Accra from various parts of Accra. So the 15 buses between Accra and Tema are operating on our major routes, but they have asked them to be going close to clinics where these workers are to facilitate their movement. They are moving during times that they start work, that will give them room to start work when they close and when the afternoon shift comes, so that when you close even in the night, there will be buses running to carry you home. We've given ample fuel, and it looks like the operation went very well yesterday. This morning there were complaints of health workers, a lot of them trying to go on a bus that would break the social distancing rules. So I'll plead with health workers who are boarding the buses that if you realize that there are a lot more people in the bus and the driver asks you to stay and wait, please listen and wait and get on the next bus that comes. The President mentioned tax relief for all health workers, and we are working on modalities to grant this tax relief to all health workers, including those even in the private sector, so that if you capture you and your employer in the private sector gives us your tax returns, they will pick your TIN numbers and will work with it such that you'll also benefit so far as you are a health worker. The other area that we have mentioned, which has caused a little bit of misunderstanding on radio, this morning I listened to one or two contributors, is the allowance or bonus that to be paid to the health workers. Please let everybody stay calm. The President is not thinking of leaving anyone behind. All of us are health workers. All of us are health workers, but not all of us will do some work that will make us take advantage of the large bonus.
So there you have it, a very detailed explanation of exactly what the frontline people are going through, including even the buses that's taking them to work. Fred is still here with me. Before I wrap up with Fred, let's talk about, look at the case count. Today we've heard we're at 287, but we know that as of Sunday, when the President briefed the nation, there were 15,000 plus cases that had been tested, and we're waiting for the results. Some
Indeed,
have come in.
so half of that came in, and we put those figures together with the 26 we have from the mandatory quarantine in Accra, and that adds up to the numbers we had today, I think 62 or so, giving us 287. There's additional 7,000 samples that are still being tested, results we're waiting for. Once those ones come in, we will know. But I think what we've got so far from the 7,000 appears to be encouraging. There's not too much in the system, and so this is very encouraging. We pray that the 7,000 that's left gives us that, and then the extra samples that are being taken, because between when the President announced this and now, the contact tracers have still been going around taking samples, and we know in some metropolitan areas or municipal areas, the contact tracers are picking samples for everybody in those assemblies, and so we expect that once we get results for the full, we'll be able to know, and then based on this, the President will make a decision on what to do with the lockdown, whether to tighten Accra, Greater Kumasi, and the other satellite areas that have been locked down or not, or whether to extend it to the entire country or not. As we speak, the President is speaking or is in a meeting with the leadership of the Ghana Medical Association. You know, they called for the lockdown, And as the lockdown took effect, indeed, they still said it wasn't enough. This is not enough to address the problem we wanted to address. Right. And so the president says whatever decision will be based on the outcome of these tests. But now that the consultations have begun, I am seeing a future tightening of those lockdown situations.
We'll see how that goes. Fred, thank you. Fred Smith is head of our health desk here, helping us with that information there. Now we move away from what the authorities have been saying about our case count and tell you more about COVID-19 and the impact it's having. Now, 14 Togolese nationals believed to have entered the country illegally have been screened for COVID-19 in Kumasi. The young men aged between 19 and 30 were reportedly picked up upon a tip-off at Abuaso in nearby Kwabre East Municipality. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei Mensah, who also chairs the Regional Security Council, spearheaded the initiative to have them screened at Kumasi South Hospital. Ohimenteria has more.
The illegal immigrants who admit their status and claim to deal in unspecified machinery say they have been in Ghana since December last year. The development raises concerns about the porous nature of the country's entry points.
We are here for training and learning. We sell some machine and we are learning to know how to manipulate them.
Under the street police, health and political authority supervision, the suspects underwent COVID-19 screening. Medical staff at the Kumasi South Hospital were kept busy as they took all the 14 through the process, one after the other. Dr. Ofori Bodu is the medical superintendent.
They are young men from Togo who were allegedly seen in Abraso. I'm told it's close to Mamponting. And so I spoke with my boss, the regional director, and also with the regional minister. And so the decision was for them to be transported here for screening and then subsequent testing. We did the basic screening. We used the temperature and then our questionnaire to screen them, and then if anybody fits into our criteria, then we do the testing, and then we will keep the person here. But these ones, they didn't fit into our criteria, so we've taken their particulars and then we handed them over to the immigration.
So how many of them?
And there were 14.
The Togolese have since been handed over to the Ghana Immigration Service, whose officials declined comment on the next line of action. From Kumasi, for Joy News, Ohimenteria reporting.
And here in the studio, I'm Gifty Andopia. Now, JoyNews checks have revealed some Ghanaians are flouting government's directive to stay indoors as it works to contain the spread of the coronavirus. 14 individuals have been arrested for flouting those lockdown rules in Kaswa in the central region. DSP Irene Sewa Opong is Regional Police Public Affairs Officer. She has been giving us some updates.
With reference to Operation Convict Safety, which is also taking place at Kaswa within the central region, 14 suspects had been arrested by the Kaswa Divisional Command, and they have been remanded into police custody at Ofalco Circuit Court by His Lordship Ebenezer Osei to reappear on the 16th of April 2020. Their plea was not taken. Their caution statement was taken on breach of imposition restriction contrary to Regulation 1 subsection 1 of the Executive Instrument 65/20 and Section 6 of the imposition restrictions at 10/12 of 2020. Investigations are ongoing.
So we've been checking up on the lockdown enforcement and how it's going. Maxwell Agbagba visited the Okponglo intersection on the Accra-Madino Road on the N1 highway and Kaneshi. He reports that there's increasing vehicular traffic as security personnel intensify checks on the road.
line of the lockdown to curb the possible spread of the coronavirus here at Okponglo, what we are beginning to witness is the increasing number of vehicles on the roads. Now, it is difficult to tell whether all of these persons here are essential service providers or work within that sector. Police officers here are having a very difficult time doing the sieving, trying to sieve out those who are not essential workers or do not have any tangible reason to be out from those who have genuine reasons to be out. This has created some kind of traffic situation here at the Okponglo intersection. Now, coming all the way here, we saw quite a number of vehicles on the roads, more numbers than we had seen during the first week of the lockdown. I've been speaking to the Highway Patrols Commander, DSP Isaac Sakite, who says they are beginning to see more vehicles on the roads, hence they are intensifying the lockdown here on the streets.
Enforcement of the lockdown. It seems many people are taking advantage of the situation to come into town. Currently, we are allowing people who are providing essential services like food, people who are critical staff in their various institutions, those who they can prove that they have something to do with essential provision of essential services. Anything aside that, if you don't give us any tangible explanation, for instance, like you are going to a hospital, that we can see that you are going to the hospital, and we can prove. No, we will tell you. We allow pharmacists, nurses, medical doctors, ECG workers, Ghana Water, and all other essential service providers. Anything aside that, if you are going to the bank, you get to the nearest bank to you at your area and use the ATM to cash. Anything aside that, no.
Are you seeing more people on the streets now than you saw last week?
Yes. And we started yesterday. We started from Tesaro. I started from Tesaro, and today I'm at Legon. Yes. We can't allow this, else a lot of people will die. Yes, so that is it. People are coming to town because they feel the enforcement is not working. So they're taking advantage, they're coming to town. Yes, so that is why we need to enforce it, so that they stay at home.
So yes. You've intensified it now?
Yes, we are intensifying it, yes.
Here on the N1 highway, the story is the same. But police officers I've been speaking to here tell me that they're beginning to see more cars on the roads this week. They say they've had the unpleasant duty of turning away persons who do not have any business to be on the streets. They are urging all motorists who do not have any tangible reason to be out there to stay indoors.
Richard Ofori.
Okay, you are?
I'm a taxi driver.
Okay, the passenger you picked, where was he going?
Oh, we are. He's my brother. We stay together.
Okay.
I say his phone is worrying him. Yeah. So how for him to get the money, if anything, he can go and draw money and so forth. So he want to change the phone so that should be possible for him.
But you know he's not supposed to be out, right? If it's just phone, if he's going to get food, fine. But mobile phone, no.
Okay, for that one, dear, we are sorry about that one.
You didn't know?
No, I didn't know that.
Although it is the second week of the lockdown, well, Kadeshi, it appears, is still getting back to its normal state. That was not what we saw in the first week of the lockdown, when the streets here looked empty and deserted.
Maxwell Agbagba with that report, really sincerely. If you have nothing doing out there, do stay at home. Well, security analyst Adam Bona is lauding the decision by the police hierarchy to give police personnel deployed to lockdown areas food instead of the cash allowance. In an interview with JoyNews, he said from his personal monitoring, some personnel left their duty posts in search of food. He's urging the police to rather support the decision by their leaders.
Food instead of money, because if you ask me, food instead of money, because you know the lockdown, there are no food sold around unless there is food. There's no food sold around. And so if there's no food sold around and you are even giving 20 cedis to go buy lunch, where are you going to buy the lunch from? You won't get lunch to buy. And so somebody somehow should have started giving food, but somehow they started giving, money. And I think that, we learn, and this operation, we've never had, the whole world has never witnessed such a thing before. And so we learn by the day. So I think that we need to pat, those who are in charge, we need to pat them in the back and say, if there are differences, it needs to be resolved properly. But I think that they should give them food, because then, without the food, when I done some monitoring in the past, you go and the officers are not there. When you ask a person, you'll be told that 2 of them have to go and buy food and come before we go. But now food is brought to you on the beat, so you don't leave and go and buy food, because if you leave, you'll be punished. It is simply impossible, from where I sit, from the analytical point of view, it's simply impossible, or unless probably it is decided that the same number of officers who were initially drafted in are kept. That way we will not feel the impact of this operation. So for me, I think some information was not passed on well. And from where I stand, I think that we need to all come together. This is not the time we should be backing and shouting about money. This is the time I think all of us should put our differences aside and support the president's call for us to bring this COVID, to curb the spread of this disease. But some of these bakery, I've seen officers have sent me images of food, and some of the images are not true. Images that were sent to me, as I came here, I'm sure you might have eaten here before. Their food is expensive. It means that some way, somehow, some information didn't go down well. The 100 cedis, from where I've got it, is for 24 hours. And 24 hours, one person can do 24 hours. If one person can do 24 hours, then you have the 100 cedis. But, it's usually either 8 hours or 12 hours. So I think this is where the problem is coming from.
Well, some news just coming in indicate that 8 persons were today put before court. 11 were remanded into police custody after they pleaded guilty to charges of 2 counts. That is conspiracy to commit crime, to wit, failing to comply with restrictions imposed and failing to comply with restrictions imposed contrary to Section 6 of the Imposition and Restrictions Act 2020. We'll try and get DSP Efia Tenge, who speaks for the police, the Accra Region Police, so we get details of those people who were arrested and put before court. But before that, the Owutu-Sanya West Health Directorate, in partnership with the Member of Parliament for the area, Neni George Anda, is embarking on education and sensitization campaign in the market, lorry stations and the various communities against COVID-19. Presenting some medical items and PPEs to the Health Directorate, Deputy Minister for Communications and the Member of Parliament for the area reiterated the need for all to strictly adhere to government's directive to stay free from the virus.
Over the past week, they have been embarking on an aggressive educational outreach program, targeting the markets, targeting the lorry stations, and educating the communities about the need for us to keep our hands clean and to wash our hands with soap and running water for at least 20 seconds as frequently as possible, and the use of alcohol-based hand sanitizers to be able to kill the spread of the coronavirus disease. The third one is also the fact that we shouldn't be touching our face. You shouldn't be touching your mouth, your eyes and your nose, because most of the time, if you haven't washed your hands properly, the virus could be on your hand, okay? And then once you touch your nose, then it has a way to enter your lungs. And of course, observing the social distancing policy, 2 square meters radius, and I'm happy so far. I think that Owutu-Sanya West, we are doing quite well. There's a saying that the virus moves when you move, and the virus stays away from you when you stay at home. So everybody should stay at home. We brought a number of fridges for the medical facilities, including the CHIPS compounds. We've brought beds,
some of our facilities don't have enough beds, but we are also creating a venue where if anybody is identified as having the coronavirus disease, that person can be isolated and be given the care that the person needs. So we brought the PPE equipment, we brought hand sanitizers, we've brought benches, we've brought Veronica buckets, we've brought hand washing soap. We've brought basically everything.
Stay home and stay safe. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty, and Apia. Many thanks for watching. Do stay with us. I'm taking a very quick break. We'll be right back with more. Medical officials at the 37 military hospitals say they are in urgent need for personal protective equipment, saying the available ones are inadequate. The hospital has set up a quarantine center where more than 200 suspected coronavirus patients have been held, with 9 turning positive. According to head of public health at the facility, Naval Captain Edwin Nyakon, the facility will run out of PPE stocks they had for the fight against Ebola in the next 3 weeks. They're calling for more. He was speaking when members of Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee visited the facility earlier today.
For somebody, anxiety and everything. For us as well, who interface with him or her, we're also on edge. So the earliest we got the results, the best, because it puts everybody at rest. If somebody has to wait for 4 days, in here, waiting for 4 days for his result. It's air conditioning all the same, but it's not comfortable enough, mental stress and everything. So we're ready to cope with the 6 hours that we're giving initially, which turned to 24 hours. But of course, there are only 2 testing centers, KCCR in Kumasi and Noguchi here. And you can imagine the samples that have been taken. So the pressure is on. So if we could improve the testing sites and get results much earlier, we'll be in better shape. So how many cases, you know? We can have separated ones, just the mask, just the coverall or so. But for those who are engaging with the patients, they need to be fully prepared from head to toe. So the PPEs are the ones that are in short supply. If we're not careful, we run out of it, we put everybody's life in danger. Because when they leave the hospital, they're going back to their families. Right. So that's, we shouldn't be able to compromise on that at all. So our main request to go for PPEs, full cover PPE, sir.
Now, let me do a follow-up question to my chairman. The PPE, especially the nose mask, we have category of PPE.
And like we said here on The Pulse, we celebrate frontline workers like the man who just spoke. They want PPEs. If you can help donate to them, by all means do so. Or go to the 37 military hospital, and I'm sure, or you can give them a call, and I'm sure you'll find a way of helping them. Like I indicated earlier on, 8 persons today were put before the Circuit Court. 11 were remanded, Court 11, and remanded into police custody after they pleaded not guilty to charges of 2 counts. Let's get more details on that story. DSP Fiatenge speaks for the Accra Region Police, and she joins me on the line. Hello, DSP Fiatenge. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Jesse.
So give us a bit more details on this particular story.
Yes, all right, thank you. That was on the 3rd of April. The police within Bachona, on their usual patrols and also ensuring that people adhere to the imposition of restriction that is already enforced, the police came across a number of people, numbering about 40, who were throwing a party in a particular house around Cambodia in Bachona. Right. And so the police was able to arrest 9 of them, after which majority of them managed to escape. So yesterday, the docket was put before the court, that was the registry, and the docket was allocated for hearing in Court 11. So this morning, all the 9 persons were sent to Court 11, and after they were put before the court, the 9 of them pleaded not guilty to the offenses of conspiracy to commit crime and also for failing to adhere to the Imposition of Restrictions Act, specifically the Section 6 of this particular act. So one of them, who happens to be the landlord, was granted bail, and also the 8 persons have been remanded into police custody until the 14th of March.
Until the 14th of March, you say. So these people were, they were throwing a party.
Exactly so. They were having a party, and they claimed to be celebrating the birthday party of one of them.
Right. But they pleaded not guilty. Typically, what sort of punishment are they looking at? Should they be pronounced guilty?
Yes. In fact, before these enforcements, we all know that the act that provided a framework for the police to work with, especially when it comes to prosecution, is the Imposition of Restriction Act, that is 1012, 2020. And when you go to Section 6 of this act, it provides that anybody who fails to adhere to any of these restrictions, after the person has gone through trials, that is in the own wisdom of the court can prefer punishment. And if it is a fine, we are looking at about what is 1,000 penalty units, and we know that one penalty unit is 12 Ghana cedis, and that is even in the minimum. And maximum, that is about 5,000 penalty units should the court to decide to give you, that is a maximum punishment of a fine. And if there are imprisonment penalty also, which also come from the court, we are also looking at you not suffering a jail term of not less than 4 years, and also not more than 10 years, which is also the minimum prison term. So we hope and look forward that as we are prosecuting these persons, the court will also prescribe some stiffer punishment for these people, so that it will also serve as a deterrent to people who have decided to flout these directives that we are enforcing. And we expect that people should adhere to them, because this operation is something that we hope to make sure that we continue to.
Hello? Yes, I lost you briefly getting to the end of your statement. You could just say that again.
Yes, what I was saying is that this Imposition of Restriction Act is something that the police hopes to enforce it to the full letter, and that no stone will be left unturned. That is a serious matter here. And what we expect from people is to stay at home, to comply with these directives. And if anybody should be found flouting with these directives, the police will grab the whip and make sure that people who are found contrary to these directives are made to face the full rigors of the law.
This afternoon, I'll just take this advantage to ask you this question before you go. This afternoon, we've had one of your colleagues say, it looks as if people think the authorities have rested on their oars. And so there are a lot more vehicles in town, there are a lot more people in town. Is the police overwhelmed?
Yes, in fact, we are not overwhelmed. The issue is that we even continue to revise our strategy. This week, we were making sure that we implement all the directives to the core. As we have done from the beginning, we are continuing to do so. We are not perturbed. And what the police is still doing is making sure that every directive that we need to enforce, we are doing so. We are not overwhelmed with the situation, and that we still expect that people will still adhere to these directives, as we have done right from the beginning until now, and we also continue to do so. So it is something that is still ongoing. I'm yet to find out why we are still having these number of vehicles. We have said from the beginning that people continue to have a lot of flimsy excuses. People feel that they have reasons for being out. But whatever it is, if your reason is not tangible, if you do not fall within the exemption category, If you have no reason to be outside, then of course the police is still going to make sure that we still return you to go back home, because now the restriction is such that all of us stay at home, stay in the house, unless of course you have something reasonable to do, which of course have already been outlined for all of us to know.
So finally, before you go, what has been the major challenge for the Accra Region Police, for example, in enforcing this lockdown?
Yes, right from the beginning, as I've always indicated, the issue of sensitization, education, the non-compliance of some people, one, with the reason that we do not know, we don't really understand, and also a lot of excuses in this area. People feeling that they have the right to be outside with some exemption of a sort. But rather, instead of they going out to perform the very duty for which they have those exemptions, people will just come out and give you an identification card or give you something to tell you that they have an exemption. Meanwhile, they are going out there for a different purpose, where we said that no, it was a no. If you are within these exemption categories, it means that you are going out for reasons to perform those particular duties, but not to do any other thing. So the police were not allowing people who claim to be under these exemptions. However, they are going out for reasons best known to them. So that was also another challenge. And also another challenge we also encountered was around Amasaman area, that is Sawum area, that the boundary there. But the police also realized that the vehicles that were being turned away around the Sawam area there, anytime they get there and they are being turned away, they go a little further, drop the passengers, and these passengers find themselves or find their way back into Accra again, and it was vice versa. We have tried as much as we can to deter them from doing so. Some of them have been arrested, some of them have been warned, others have been detained, and even as I speak, some are still in the process of being prosecuted. So these were major challenges that has really faced Accra since the enforcement have been enforced.
All right. Well, it's just about 9 days into it. We'll see how the remaining days go and whether or not government will tighten or loosen it as we go along. DSP Efiatenge speaks for the Accra Police. Thank you very much, DSP Efiatenge. So we're going to do the global outlook, but let's take a look. Let's start with Africa and what the update is in Africa. Well, Ivory Coast Defense Minister Ahmed Bakayoko has tested positive for coronavirus and gone into quarantine. Mr. Bakayoko tweeted that he has shown no symptoms before the test and urged citizens to be vigilant. Ivory Coast has so far confirmed 323 cases of coronavirus and 3 people have died. The government has imposed a lockdown in the main city of Abidjan and enforced a nationwide curfew from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. local time. On Saturday, health officials urged people to wear face masks to try to slow the spread of the virus. On phone with me is Marcel. She's an Ivorian journalist who specializes in health reporting. Hello, Marcel Aka. All right, so when you hear that beep, you know that it's possible you've lost the interviewee. We'll try and reach her back on the line. But so far, we've seen the Ghana situation right there on your screen. And some of you have been sending questions about the number of recovered. You say that you hear over 30, but you see 3. Well, you see 3 because there are others who have been discharged, but they are continuing the treatment at home. And so you cannot necessarily say those people have recovered. They have been discharged to go back home, but they're continuing with the treatment at home. That's why you see the fully recovered as 3. Let's go back on the line. Marcel Aka is an Ivorian journalist. He specializes in health reportage. Hello, Marcel.
Hello.
Well, so we're hearing that one of the top officials in Ivory Coast has tested positive. How is Ivory Coast taking this development?
Okay, in Côte d'Ivoire, we have 62 new cases in patients with coronavirus announced on April 6, 22, bring to 323. The number of cases from the country registered 41, and 6 patients and 3 deaths. The population are made aware of the importance of barrier measures such as hand washing and hand hygiene, respect for distance measures, and it is also recommended to wear the bring to those who have sick or to people who frequent places at risk. The number of passengers has been limited in public transport for taxis, including drivers, 7 for pickup. Containment centers, particularly for infectious disease, at the University Hospital Centers in Trècheville, unlike on the district of Abidjan. And the government is creating voluntary screening seats for the disease. But population, notably in the commune of Yopougon and Koumassi, still in the district of Abidjan, were opposite because the undercut the government is created instead of containment centers.
Right. Well, Marcel, what's
I think that my English is good, so you understand what I say.
I know, we're just managing, we're just having to manage with that at the moment. But thank you very much for that update. I think you tried to give us an update of the number of cases that you have so far and how the sensitization is going in Abidjan and how hopefully the government believes this will work, especially with the curfew. But Marcel, thank you very much for that update. Marcel Aka is an Ivorian a journalist who specializes in health. Apologies if you aren't able to make sense exactly of what she said because of the accent, but of course she speaks French, and so she's just really tried to give us that. Let's go to South Africa, where married life got off to an unexpected start for a pair of newlyweds when police showed up during the service. They had received a tip-off that the wedding in KwaZulu-Natal was happening at the weekend despite a nationwide ban on all public gatherings because of coronavirus. Now, all 50 wedding guests, including the pastor who conducted the ceremony and the newlyweds themselves, were promptly arrested and taken to a police station outside Richards Bay. Duduzile Ramela is a freelance journalist in South Africa who has been joining us every now and then here on the show. She joins us today live from South Africa. Hello, Duduzile. It's good to have you this afternoon, and hopefully our connection is smoother today. So take us through this rather dramatic development of a wedding. I mean, people just don't know how to respect rules, it seems.
Sure, and one really that we are not getting right in terms of communication. This couple has really set tongues wagging and for the wrong reason. As you rightly mentioned, and as you can see on the visuals, the bride being ushered into a van on the wedding day. They did not listen to the rule and adhere to the rule. And so that's happening itself out as we speak. So we'll find out in a day. But I think we have a couple of the pastor. So the second pastor, it was actually pretty effective for marrying people. So it's going to be having some work on their hands.
Well, I'm not so lucky again today because the line is not as smooth. And if I heard you right, you talk about how they were ushered directly into a police van, the van that the police brought and took them away. They didn't even get the chance to for any further explanation at all. Which, of course, perhaps is the right thing to do since we're trying to reduce the spread of COVID-19. We'll try and raise you back, perhaps, on the line and get some more on that. Duduzile is joining us from South Africa, but of course, there seems to be a lot of pressure on the bandwidth at the moment. Everybody elsewhere seems to be hooked onto the internet. And so we'll try and raise her on the telephone because we need to get more of the details. So those pictures are what happened, occurred in South Africa, a wedding of about 50 guests. You've seen the soldiers there who went to disperse that group there. We'll get more of that detail right now. Hello, Duduzile, are you there?
Can you hear me?
It is, I do hear you. So you were telling us again about this dramatic turn of events at this wedding for the couples. Please tell us again.
Right. This, I guess as humans, we always take chances, but these are not the times to really be taking chances. This couple being arrested, together with all the guests that were attending the wedding, including the pastor, and this being the second pastor to be arrested in KwaZulu-Natal for marrying the couple. Now, the couple faces charges of contravening the regulations of the Disaster Management Act of South Africa, and that matter playing itself out right now in the courts. And from the last information that we had, they were still being interviewed, and it's just a matter of us getting more information as to what is still happening with the couple.
So, will they be the first examples of those who flouted the lockdown rules?
I think the law enforcement officers, our police minister today, Begitele, coming out, he was also at another township today where they actually had a lockdown party when the lockdown was announced. So people clearly violating the rules. And he's come out guns blazing to say that we will not be tolerating anybody who's going to be breaking the violations. If you need to, as a police officer, push people back into their homes, and this is what our police minister was saying, that we need to protect people from themselves and we need to protect each other. And so if you're not going to be adhering to the rules, the police you'll be met with the full wrath of the law, basically. I think another big issue in South Africa that we're facing is fake news and fake information. There was a gentleman who appeared in court today because he went on video and it was shared widely where he said that, testing kits have coronavirus. And so this really not doing well for what the president had said in terms of 10,000 field workers being deployed to run testing programs, to go door to door, and to tell people about coronavirus, to test people, to increase the testing capacity. So such utterances really not doing well for us, but then law enforcement officers not taking any chances or prisoners here.
And certainly we shouldn't be taking any chances, not in these times. Let's take a look at an update on the numbers. Have the numbers changed over the past few days?
Oh, and how? So we are now reporting 1,749 deaths. Today we had confirmation of another death, so the death toll sitting at 13. It was a gentleman who was in hospital and who had stage 4 prostate cancer. This is according to our health minister. So the total number of people who have passed away in South Africa tragically is 13. One death is one death too many, but we've got 1,749 positive cases. I think an issue in South Africa at the moment is capacity in terms of testing. A lot of testing has been done in private hospitals, but the issue of testing is also coming up quite frequently, which is why we're seeing now the deployment of these health workers to be going door to door and these volunteers to be talking to people about coronavirus and trying to increase testing capacity so that we know where we are. A few days ago, the health minister cautioning that even though we're not seeing a rapid rise in the number of infections, this does not by any stretch of the imagination mean that we're out of the woods yet. If anything, we need to take this more seriously now more than ever.
And certainly this is the very biggest uncertainty, or moment of uncertainty for the entire world, and so nobody can say anything definite at this point. But the last time we spoke to you, you gave us an update of how the police there are enforcing the lockdown. Over here in Ghana, it's been one of the biggest things because we started our lockdown a number of days back. And we've had issues, a few excesses here and there as well, with how, enforcement officials somehow, get involved, with abuses here and there. How is it going in South Africa?
Sure. I mean, in the beginning of the lockdown, it was a bit of an unusual situation, right? So there was a bit of that was used. Two schools of thought on that. Some saying that, well, we do need enforcement, so we need the police to play their part and to make people understand the severity of this. And some people saying brutality should not be a thing. People should not be dying because police are trying to clamp down and help people with regards to the coronavirus. But at the moment, I mean, I think we've sort of found a happy equilibrium, if you will. I mean, on major highways, we're seeing police closing down and conducting roadblocks, asking people for their permits. Where are you going? Do you have a permit to actually be out on the streets? Because we're on day 12 of our lockdown. Okay. So where the police is concerned, right now the situation being quiet. However, there have been some concessions that were made, right? So in the beginning, the lockdown regulations would tell you vendors and formal traders are not supposed to be out on the streets, but they've since now relaxed those regulations slightly to say you will need a permit in order for you to be selling on the streets again, but you will not be selling fast foods. You'll be selling vegetables and fruits. And a lot of vendors today are standing outside the offices of officials trying to get their permits, and that has been quite a situation that hasn't been managed properly, because these are people who keep our economy going. I mean, we rely on small businesses, and this also highlighting just how much small businesses need to be taken care of.
So finally, Didizile, I'm coming to you. How are people coping in lockdown? This is obviously a very different situation from anything that the world has experienced. How are people, what sort of stories are coming up? What do people tell journalists like you?
I think that this is new for all of us. Some people are quite happy in terms of, well, this is the moment that I've always needed to sort of look within, to introspect, and to take a break and to breathe. While some people really don't know what to do with themselves. I think we are lucky in a sense, that you get to get out of the house for a few hours. But you can imagine for people who don't have families, for people who are alone, so mental health issues coming out quite strongly, people not knowing what to do with themselves. And then you find people who, there's a gentleman who is busy training for a marathon in his own backyard and just keeps on running and is doing kilometers and kilometers of running in his own backyard. So it's been such a mixed bag in terms of reaction. I think, in the main, people are really, really struggling. Every day is different. But South Africans keeping their heads up. We're a bunch that knows how to make a joke out of anything. Not to say that this is a joke, please. I'm not saying that. But I think that, people taking to social media, posting their videos of them doing something, and trying to keep themselves busy, whether it's by singing or playing around in the yard, and sharing all sorts of crazy and quirky things that they're doing to cope with the lockdown.
Well, I think the best thing that ever happened to mankind, especially in these times, is the ability to create humor, the ability to create some fun. Otherwise, we'll all be burdened to death. Didizile, thank you. It's always an exciting moment to speak to you about the situation in South Africa. We look forward to good news the next time we speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Didizile Ramela is a freelance journalist in South Africa. They're joining us with how they're enforcing their lockdown and how the numbers are going up. But the very dramatic situation is that a wedding was disrupted by police. A wedding of about 50 guests. The wedded couple, the pastor, everybody, they were all arrested. In the meantime, though, the WHO has condemned remarks by two doctors who suggested that a potential vaccine for coronavirus should first be tested on Africans. The World Health Organization's chief, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, termed the remarks as racist. Africa cannot and will not be a testing ground for any vaccine, says the Director General in a statement. We will follow all of the rules to test any vaccine or therapeutics all over the world, whether it is in Europe, Africa, or wherever. Listen.
Then on the vaccines issue, there was, I think, a comment last week from some couple of scientists who said the testing ground for the new vaccines will be Africa. To be honest, I was so appalled, and it was a time when I said, when we needed solidarity, this kind of racist remarks actually would not help. It goes against the solidarity. Africa cannot and will not be a testing ground for any vaccine. We will follow all the rules to test any vaccine or therapeutics all over the world using exactly the same rule. Whether it's in Europe, Africa, or wherever, we will use the same protocol, and if there is a need to be tested elsewhere, to treat human beings the same way, equally. And the hangover from a colonial mentality has to stop. And WHO will not allow this to happen. And it was a disgrace, actually, and appalling to hear during the 21st century from scientists that kind of remark. And we condemn this with the strongest terms possible. But we assure you that this will not happen in Africa and will not happen elsewhere in any country. Proper protocols will be followed, and human beings will be treated as human beings, because we are all human beings.
Dr. Ghebreyesus there, he's the boss of the WHO. Let's move to the UK now. You know the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved to intensive care in hospital after his coronavirus symptoms worsened. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says he was moved on the advice of his medical team and was receiving excellent care. So let's go live to the UK now. We speak to Oroyo Eubanks. Oroyo Eubanks is my own classmate from University of Westminster. Oroyo, it's good to have you.
Hello, Gifty. Hi, great to speak with you. Great job, great job.
So tell us, the last time I spoke to you before we came on air, you were in a queue to get some food. Is it that serious? Is that what the situation has become?
That is the situation across the country. Many people are queued up for essential items at supermarkets, at large markets across the country. It is part of the isolation measures that the government has put in place to ensure that social distancing measures are to. So you stand in queues for the supermarkets and allow large amounts of people in at the same time. But the queues move quite quickly, to be honest. I commend the staff supermarkets across the UK who are ensuring people can go in and get the essential items in a quick and timely.
Alright, I'm having a hard time hearing you from that connection on Skype. We may have to raise you back again, like we did with my previous resource person, Duduzile. We may have to come back to you, Oroyo, after this break. Yeah, welcome back to the show. We go back to the UK where Oroyo Eubanks is standing by for us. He's a resident in London, and like I was speaking to him earlier, the last time I spoke to him before we came on air, Oroyo, you had to be in a queue for food. So we didn't hear you earlier. Tell us again.
Apologies for that. Yes, I was in a queue to the supermarket, and I was saying that the queue wasn't very long. So thankfully, I stayed outside for about 10 minutes, and it is part of the isolation measures put in place by the government to ensure that social distancing measures are adhered to, and for the supermarkets not to allow too many people inside at once.
Right.
So when I was inside, it was not very crowded, which is a good thing. There was maybe about 20 people shopping in this large supermarket and maybe the same amount outside waiting. So yeah, social distancing is really happening here in the UK.
Well, that's good. But let's come to a rather substantive issue that I wanted to talk to you about, which is about Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister. He's been taken into intensive care. What sort of talk goes on? Did people see this coming?
People did not see this coming. The Prime Minister first reported sick last week, and then he got tested, and he was confirmed to have the coronavirus. He was at home, under care of his doctors until on Sunday, when his situation got worse and symptoms became even more severe, that he was rushed to the hospital. Just about 7 p.m. on Sunday night. People didn't expect this coming because since last week, every day we were still getting updates from the Prime Minister from his home, of course, via FaceTime and small videos on Twitter and on Instagram. So he seemed to be in good health, just by the look of things. So for this to happen on Sunday night was shocking.
Someone else is deputizing for him, and in his speech he says that governors is going to go on, it's going to be business as usual. From where you sit, is that what's happening? Is it business as usual? I know it's just been a day or two since he's been away, but is it business as usual?
From what I've seen, it's business as usual. We have quite a number of the ministers in the cabinet who have started to provide updates to the media. Michael Gove this morning was on media expressing, how the government is currently working. Dominic Raab, who the Prime Minister has asked to deputize for him in certain instances, have been chairing much of the cabinet meetings and making certain decisions. So it seems like there's a smooth flow, a smooth transition of duties. The Prime Minister was placed in ICU last night, but this morning we got reports that he's stable. So that's some positive news there, that he's stable. So we're expecting that the recovery will hopefully be soon. He's under excellent care at the St. Thomas's Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the UK. So there's no doubt that there's some anxiety amongst the public, but also that his cabinet ministers are stepping up to the task and leading the country in this difficult time.
It's good to have you over here. Just before I let you go, I just want to find out about your housemate. How is he? Is he back?
Very good. He's back very well, back to working as normal. So to myself, we've done well in self-isolation, and I think have, for him, fully recovered, and for me, free of any symptoms of the coronavirus.
There's one thing, though, that keeps coming up for people who have had coronavirus, and it is the fact that people are beginning to be very uncomfortable around persons like that, to the point of stigmatization. Is that the case in the UK?
Not to a large extent, and to be honest, it's a frightening reality to deal with, and I think at first anyone would probably feel scared to be around someone that has coronavirus at first. And that is, of course, because of the hysteria that has been created about the virus in the media. But to a larger extent, I'm not seeing where people have been, coming out saying they've been discriminated or stigmatized against because of being infected with the virus. And I think maybe it helped a lot that so many celebrities have, come out to say, I have the virus, or now people we know in leadership positions are saying, I have the virus. So it's no class or creed. It's affecting everyone. And so I hope the stigmatization of the virus is on the low.
Well, you talk about hysteria in the media. I mean, you are a journalist. Of course, you're not practicing in London, but you are a journalist. This is inevitable. The story as it's been told about coronavirus itself presents itself as a story that's inevitably fearful.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think, but we also have a responsibility to allow the citizenry and those who are watching us, the public general, to be able to get the information and the facts, to know that even though this is a virus that's scary and the way it's transmitted is so easy and everyone can be infected, that it is not something that should be stigmatized.
Right.
And I think we need to do much more of that. I think we are rightly so speaking about the effects that it's been having on the wider population, the number of deaths, how fast it's spreading, but there's a lesser focus on the recovery rates, on how people are coping with the virus and how it's transmitted, to prevent the stigmatization that is happening, especially in smaller developing countries.
Thank you very much, Roy. I'm glad to see that you're good, and I'm happy to know that your friend is good as well. We'll keep praying for the Prime Minister, and we keep praying for all of us in the world. Roy Eubanks is a resident in London. He works with Chain of Hope, and he joined us with what's happening in London. I almost said China because that's where we're going next with this. We're going to China, take a look at what's happening there, and that's the odometer, as they call it. It gives us an idea what countries are recording as far as coronavirus is concerned. So there you have it. Total cases over the world, over 1,386,807 cases. 79,065 people have died. But good thing is 297 people, 581 have also recovered. Let's go by countries and have a look. The United States is now on the top of the chart. They're looking at 380,734 cases so far. They've had that's 13,730 new cases. 11,906 people have died, and the number goes on and on and on. But of course, 21,000 plus people have also recovered. Spain comes right after the United States of America with 140,511 total cases. Italy is still there, and of course it looks like Spain and USA have overtaken Italy, which was at the time the worst. That's about 2 or 3 weeks ago, was the worst in the world. 135 cases, 135,586 cases so far there. If you look at Germany, 105,519 cases. They've had 2,144 new cases and 1,902 have died. France comes up right after that. So if you look at it carefully, it's focusing really on Europe. Europe seems to have taken over from China, which was the epicenter. Now France is looking at 998,010 people. In China, gone down to 81,740 coronavirus cases. Iran is still there. The UK, from where we just returned as well. Turkey, Switzerland, Belgium, Netherlands. It follows as such. So this gives you an idea what is happening. You can always log on to myjoyonline.com for more of that, or you can also go online. This is just to let you know that this situation is a serious situation, and you ought to stay home. If you're told to stay home, keep washing your hands, observe social distancing. It is difficult because we're all adjusting to a new lifestyle, but it is extremely, extremely necessary. I bring you back to Ghana. 5 companies selected by government to produce personal protective equipment to aid the fight against the novel coronavirus infection are starting work this week. In his address to the nation last night, that will be Sunday, President Akufo-Addo disclosed that local capacity is being mobilized to ensure that the country overcomes the challenge of global shortage of PPEs. Earlier today, Health Minister Kweku Agyeman offered details about the production of face masks as he took delivery of thousands of medical supplies and PPEs from the Chinese government.
Across the globe, many frontline health workers in countries including the US and the United Kingdom have raised concerns about inadequate PPEs, a situation which exposes them to the virus. Many have had to take the tough decision to walk away from their jobs to protect their lives. In Ghana, some frontline health personnel, including nurses and doctors, threatened to quit after calls on authorities to provide them with the critical equipment went unheeded. But help has come with China stepping in to assist government's efforts at procuring the PPEs. Well, it's another day in Ghana's fight against the coronavirus disease, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the talk on the lips of almost every Ghanaian and health worker or a frontline person has been the lack of PPEs or logistics to fight this disease. Today, the government of China is donating huge quantities of PPEs to Ghana to help in our fight. As you see behind me, there is an Air China cargo flight. We just landed at the Kotoka International Airport to deliver all of these. In all, 18 countries in Africa are benefiting from this. This Air China cargo plane, carrying millions of dollars worth of medical supplies and personal protective equipment, landed in Ghana's capital on Monday as the base for distribution to Ghana and 17 other African countries.
China is a real friend of Africa. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Africa, you have a weak public health system. So facing this coronavirus, and you have huge challenges. So now Chinese government, we are the first country to send the chartered aircraft to come to Ghana, to come to Africa to give assistance. That is the nature of our relations. That's the nature of our friendship.
Each beneficiary African country is receiving N95 protective face mask for medical use, standard protective face mask for medical use, disposable coveralls, infrared thermometer, medical goggles, single-use sterile rubber surgical gloves, and disposable shoe cover. Health Minister Kweku Ajmamenu admitted the country's health systems have been stretched by the outbreak of COVID-19. He also revealed Ghana would soon begin production of PPEs.
Ghana, we never expected that we'll even get a single case of coronavirus. Unfortunately, this has become a global problem, and as part of the globe, we couldn't have hidden ourselves away from it. We made all efforts to try to protect our people, to prevent the disease getting into our country. Fortunately, our efforts didn't yield 100% efficiency. We have seen cases, people have infiltrated, we are seeing some levels of community spread, and we have put our young men and women with coordinators, supporting them, giving advice to government, and we are tracing contacts to try to test. We are doing so many tests at the moment. We are trying to expand the testing capacity to ensure that test results will not continue to delay any longer. We are very grateful to the People's Republic of China for this gesture, not only to Ghana, but other West African countries. We never had stocks for emergency response when the problem started, but government has tried to do a lot to try to put in protective equipment, especially for our health workers, for other people who are working in the front line. As we moved on, it is becoming more clear that we may need to all of us begin to wear some of these masks for protection. We are continuing to try to develop some of these equipments for protection in country, and soon we will see government efforts also coming. By the end of the week, about 5 companies that we have selected will start sewing some of these coveralls, the protective masks, and all that we need will be able to be provided in our country. The first instance, within the next 10 days, we are taking deliveries from locally manufactured companies, 3.6 million face masks that will help us a lot in fighting the disease.
Ghana's Foreign Minister Shirley Ayoko-Boche, who was joined by heads of mission of the other 17 beneficiary African countries, praised China's gesture.
For China to donate these very needed PPEs, I think it's something that will go a long way to help our frontline workers, which are the health workers who receive patients, to feel comfortable, because you see, they are willing to work, to do their work, to look after patients. However, what they need from us is to ensure that they are protected. And what China is presenting today is the protection equipment. So we are very happy. It will go a long way to help. And as I'm sure you're aware, not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, Jack Ma, also a Chinese national, donated some equipment to the African countries. And we are looking to receive a second batch from him. The ambassador has also graciously told us that if there is any need, we should let them know.
Meanwhile, the Chinese government has denied claims on social media that the protective gear from China are defective and is the cause of escalation of cases in some European countries.
And the video surrounding the social media are fake. It's made by the malicious people. They have some, malicious purpose to tarnish the image of China. China, our product is very reliable. The cell phones, from computers to, the different kind of products, very reliable. So everybody who with a normal sense could say this is a fake news.
From the Kotoka International Airport, this is Fred Smith for JoyNews.
Welcome to Frontline. We continue to celebrate our frontline workers, and of course we're hoping that very soon government will come out with the real clear-cut category of who fits into the frontline workers and who will benefit from all of those juicy promises being made to them. Today we've been talking to some frontline workers. We'll bring that to you shortly, but we remind you that your doctors and health workers need you to stay at home. He says to pray for them, and certainly we urge you to send those prayers to us on our WhatsApp platform. We'll put them together and play it back to them so they know. Dr. Mpoma, the last person who spoke, was meant to speak to us today about his own experiences here on Frontline, but he's had an emergency and he's had to go take care of it. But today again on Frontline, we're focusing on leader of Ghana's coronavirus testing team. Dr. Samuel Kaba Akoria has been speaking exclusively to my colleague Latif Idrisu about the work they've been doing in terms of testing people for coronavirus and how, or the possibilities that exist for us here in Ghana.
Talk of frontline health workers delivering healthcare to Ghana's COVID-19 patients, and you find them right here at the Ga East District Hospital. Here is the center. This is where most of Ghana's COVID-19 patients are being held. The tape you find behind me separates proper frontline health workers and their clients from auxiliary or secondary frontline workers like myself. In here, the nurses and doctors are racing against time to save the many lives that are in the building behind me, currently battling with the deadly COVID-19.
With these appropriate actions taken is to contain this. So if you even see of late, our numbers have not been increasing. We're in 204, we moved to 214, and we are still 214. It will go a little high, but we don't expect it to go much than the system can contain.
Is that a hope you are expressing, or that is what is going to happen?
You see, this is what will happen, right? When you lock down and you start testing, the more people you test, you might get more positives, right? So I will not be surprised to have more cases positive, because that is the purpose of locking down, to identify them early. And then you prepare yourself for that. But it also gives us that window of breath that the next 2 weeks we should be having less, because we had locked those at home.
Yeah.
So it's not only a hope, and of course hope is the last thing you lose. I do have that hope, but it's also reality that measures of containment has been taken at the appropriate time for us not to go to the thousands.
So Dr. Kaba is confident Ghana will not hit the thousands when it comes to patients. When do
if we continue the way we go and the way we are doing things.
When should you expect the curve to flatten? Okay. How soon should or would Ghana's curve flatten?
Okay, I'll help you with that in a way so that you understand. In every country, whatever it is, you always get a peak and then it starts to drop, right? And it doesn't drop to zero. It will drop to some extent because some people would have developed immunity to it. Some people would have been cured.
Health workers undergoing training here to be put on the front line of the COVID-19 fight say they are unfazed with the dangers associated with the deadly virus.
While others will call it a risk, I would want to call it a privilege. All over the world, other staffs, I've seen other nurses who are also sacrificing to help our colleagues who are having this ailment or this suffering from this pandemic. And so I'm just want to take the opportunity to also help people who are also vulnerable. Yes.
You have no fears of contracting the virus? Well, as has been reported that frontline health workers contracted. We know a couple who have already tested positive.
Well, there are fears. Of course, all over the world, a lot of people have fear, but that's why I'm trained. Part of the training demands that you allay your fears, you put your fears away, and then the main point is that you are helping someone to recover, and in that way you're also helping yourself. So I think that's why I still want to call it a privilege. There are fears, but as time goes on, we are able to overcome the fears, and then we help our patients.
So you give us your name?
My name is Samuel.
Samuel, tell us the peculiar fear that you also have going into this battle.
Actually, because it's something like a worldwide something spread, definitely there will be a little fear inside. Definitely, no matter who you are, there's a fear that you can encounter. There's some little fear that will come your way. But as a health worker, you should rather take away the fear and know that you are in for this, and it's a passion. And since you're a nurse or a doctor or a health practitioner, you know that this is what you're up to. So you have to just face it and get trained and help combat this spread. So
how long do you envisage to be at the front line in this battle? Have you done your projections and say that by May or June, July, I should be at home with my family, not having to go back to the front line? Have you done that projection at a personal level?
At a personal level, I say we just leave everything to God in prayers. No, we haven't made any specific projections about the time that this spread will just vanish, but we are hoping and keeping all the faith and adhering to all preventive measures and precaution measures, that by as far as the Lord lives, everything will be well.
Let me follow from you. You give us your name first.
I'm Madam Jennifer Wari.
Okay. Tell me about I asked him about whether or not he has projected how long he's going to be in this battle. Have you also projected how laborious it is going to be at the front line?
Not really, but as he said, the battle is a lot. And then as a health worker, you should be ready for anything, because it could be your family, it could be your partner. Anybody can be there. So supposing I was the one there, I would need somebody to care for me. So I think that we are just doing it with a free will, not thinking about anything. That's all.
And are you ready to accept postings to any of the centers holding the clients, your clients to be clients?
Of course, that's the main reason why we are here. Of course.
And have you also projected how long you're going to be at the front line?
As long as it takes, we are here.
As long as it takes?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And this is your frontline here on the Pulse with me, Gifty and Apia. Certainly we'll look at what concerns the people who are at the front lines of this fight, be it health workers, be it security workers, whatever it is you do that expose you exponentially to contracting this disease. We'll talk about it here on Frontline. So you've heard some of them share their fears with us, but the fact that they feel trained, they're psyching themselves up to even go to the front line. Thank you to all of them. Do send in your thoughts, your encouraging words for them to our WhatsApp platform. Of course, the number is 0540109009. We'll package them and play them for all of them to see. Let's wrap up with some tips on how you can stay safe. That's just a reminder of the total number of cases we have here in Ghana, 287. And on to the regional breakdown of the 287. Greater Accra region tops the chart, 256. The Ashanti region 18. Northern region has 10. 1 is on the run. Upper West has 1. Eastern region has 1, and Upper East region has 1. In as far as routine surveillance is concerned, here is your breakdown. 172 confirmed positive. Those who have recovered are 3, discharged 18. If you put those together, you get a bigger number, and that's because some people have been asked to go home and continue treatment. 144 of them are responding to treatment. 2 are in moderate condition. 5 people have died. In as far as those who were in mandatory quarantine here in Accra confirmed cases 105, recovered 0, discharged 31, responding to treatment 74, critical, none of them are in a critical condition, none of them have died. And of course, some people were put in mandatory quarantine in Tamale as well. We know the number is 10. None of them have recovered. They're responding to treatment. Nobody is in critical condition. Nobody has died. But of course, one person is on the run and is being sought after. And that's it for the show today. Many thanks for staying with me throughout. I really appreciate it. Do log on to myjoyonline.com. There is more news there. Scroll all the way down on that page. You get details, and you get our programs as well from where we streamed live on YouTube. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. Of course, you want to stay safe. Stay at home if you have no business being out there. Business Live is next with Daryl Quao. Many thanks once again. Thank you.